Now, I have been studying emotional intelligence, self awareness, meditation, psychology in the more traditional sense and in the research sense for 8 years now. And I've been feeling this strong desire to create a course on emotional intelligence, which I have. And in making that course, the question to me was, what are the fundamentals of emotional intelligence? What does it all boil down to? A lot of people think emotional intelligence is like talking about how to manage anger or manage guilt or shame. And sure, those are important things. But I think there's something even more fundamental to emotional intelligence. And these are the four things I came up with. One is an understanding of human needs. Like we all have needs. We have the need for belonging, we have the need for connection, we have the need for certainty and security, we have the need for significance and feeling like I am someone, we have the need to contribute, we have the need to grow. Um, Having a having good emotional health boils down a lot to how well are you meeting your emotional and psychological needs. And therefore, I think one of the most important skills if you want to be intelligent is have a good awareness of what are your needs, what needs you're prioritizing, and then are those needs that you want to prioritize. So maybe you're prioritizing a lot of security in life. You have a 9 to 5 job, you do everything in a systematic way, and that leads to a certain amount of perhaps income or just predictability in life. But maybe what's needed for you is a bit more leaning in and growing, and maybe putting yourself out there on YouTube, or maybe growing in ways like starting a business, or doesn't have to be this extreme. It could just be a Twitter thread that you write and then you get some comments. And maybe if you prioritize that need for growth, maybe you take some therapy or personal development seminars or whatever. Maybe if you do that, then you'll feel more emotionally healthier. Same goes with contribution. I have found that one of the main reasons why people feel emotionally dull is because they are not sharing their work, because they're not getting enough like real world feedback about their work, even if it's negative for that matter. As long as you're contributing, there is a lot of emotional health that comes from that. And this contribution can even be in the form of a charity and donations. So if you have ever felt a warm glow if you have donated to someone or donated to a charity, then that is an example of maybe there's a sign of prioritizing contribution a bit more than perhaps your own certainty or significance. Okay, the second important factor or sub-skill in emotional intelligence, I found to be the most critical, is knowing where your focus goes. So by that I mean you need to have a quality of focus. At any time we can focus on anything. We can focus on all sorts of negative things happening in the world. We can focus on how our life is not as good. And we can focus on how our past perhaps has not been as optimal. All of those are not bad things, and I'm certainly not advocating for not seeing reality as it is. In fact, I'm a big fan of seeing reality as it is. But what I'm advocating for is also seeing the positive sides of things, also seeing how perhaps those negative experiences have shaped who you are right now, and also seeing, let's say that you had a negative interaction with someone, seeing that perhaps that negative interaction is premised on months or years of a healthy relationship. Like you can only have that sort of a conflict type interaction or direct style interaction with someone if you have some level of intimacy already. So seeing that side of things, seeing the positive side of things, and then there's this explicitly directing your focus towards something. So for example, like gratitude journaling can be one example. If you have ever heard of this idea of writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day, what you're doing fundamentally is taking charge of your focus, and you're placing it on places where you want it to be, rather than being yanked around by the autopilot in your mind, which will go to negative things because the mind by default seeks out negative things. There could be like evolutionary advantages of doing that. So taking control of your focus, being in the present moment, is also another example. So taking control of your focus, improving the quality of your focus, is a key skill, is a key fundamental aspect of developing emotional intelligence. All right, the third one I've found to be critical is beliefs, like core beliefs about how the world works, and identity, which can be thought of beliefs about yourself. So if someone has a strong identity, if someone believes that, let's say, I am the kind of person who people like to talk to, they would be more likely to function and talk to more people in a social environment much better than someone who has the belief that no one wants to talk to me, or I'm just a loser. Same goes with competence and intelligence. Like if you have the belief that, hey, I am an intelligent person who can get this job done, and if I don't have all the knowledge, I can learn things, I'm a learner, then you're more likely to actually get that work done and actually likely to learn that thing, as compared to someone who may not share that belief or may have the negative side of that belief. Now you may say that, okay, there's actually a track record of me failing, and that's why I have that belief. And sure, like external circumstances and external feedback is important, but all I'm claiming here is the cycle goes not just from evidence to beliefs, but also from beliefs to evidence, which is, if you have certain beliefs, that will trigger certain emotions in you, which will make it more likely that you execute and do those things. So it will give you a chance to do those things. So the way I say it is, not only does outcome lead to identity, but identity also leads to outcome. And the same is true for things like beliefs about the world. So do you believe the world is a friendly place? Do you believe that the world is generous and kind? Or do you think it's unfair and brutal and life is hard? And whether or not that is true, I know for sure that one set of beliefs will lead to a more happier outlook and better emotional health than the other set of beliefs. And finally, what I think is very important in emotional intelligence is taking action. When a lot of people go to therapy, or they learn meditation, or they learn certain self-care, self-help style of techniques, all of those are good and they help. But the problem is, armchair thinking on its own is incomplete. Like, we want to do all the therapy work, we want to do paths work, we want to meditate, all of those can help. But equally important is action, and not just action as in I meditated today, but also action in terms of like going out, talking to people, sharing things, writing down your goals, execution, going to the gym finally. So action, if you just do action, there can be a quality of self-hate to it. But if you do action coupled with all of the other things of stable emotional health that lead to stable emotional health, then a lot of action leads to outcome, and outcome is what we get a sense of reward from. So when you sort of, let's say if you have healed yourself in some way in therapy, and if you go and talk to someone about it, or in general just share your light energy now, that will receive a positive feedback from that person receiving it, and you will feel good about it. So action is where things are at, and do not ignore action. Don't become that person who's only doing therapy and not interacting with people, or not going out, or not creating your business, or not starting a YouTube if you ever wanted to. Action is important. And the final one that I found to be critical in living a healthy emotional life is self-compassion. And self-compassion, yes, in the sense of, yeah, you can say good things to yourself and kindness and all of that towards yourself. But I also mean self-compassion in the sense of being very careful about self-hate, and being very aware of when you turn on yourself. There are many ways in which we hate ourselves and turn on ourselves. The way in which we are just like directly talking down on ourselves is just one way. There are other ways, like perfectionism is a form of self-hate, because when you're being perfectionistic, you're placing an inhuman standard on yourself, and obviously since you're human, you will never be able to achieve that inhuman standard. So perfectionism is a form of self-hate. Same goes with catastrophizing, like thinking of the worst case outcomes. So I'm going to stop here. I'm all fired up about this because this is something I really am passionate about and have been studying for a really long time. If you're interested, I have a very big podcast. Well, by big, I mean there's several episodes, more than a book length of content in that podcast. But since there's several episodes, I have created an emotional intelligence scorecard that will assess you on all of these measures that all of these factors that I just outlined, like self hate, identity, willingness to act, quality of focus, human needs. It will give you an assessment of where you are in each of these individual areas and then suggest free episodes of my podcast based on your answers. So you don't have to go from the start and just like go through every episode of the podcast, even if it's not relevant. You will get an assessment of where you are at and some personalized suggestions of podcast episodes based on your scores. So you can only go to the ones and start from the ones that you need the most. Click the link below in the description to fill that scorecard out. Bye bye.